What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade J.J. Williams, and today I'm going to be discussing from 1995, the first in the Jumanji trilogy, the original Jumanji, starring Robin Williams, Bonnie Hunt, Kirsten Dunst, Bradley Pierce, David Alan Grier, and Jonathan Hyde. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, and the first in yet another trilogy featured here on Trilogies Month, the start of the Jumanji trilogy. And this one is really fun and different because virtually none of the actors in the original film appear in any of the sequels. There's a repeat character between the original and the second movie, but the actor has been recast. It's completely different actors playing the character. So let's get right down to it, shall we? Our film opens in the year 1869, and two boys are burying a chest in the ground in Brantford, New Hampshire. We then fast forward 100 years, and it's 1969. And the parish name is very well respected in the town of Brantford. There's a statue of General Angus Parrish, who's a Civil War hero and three-star general. There's the parish hall at the Cliffside School for Boys. Sam Parrish owns Parrish Shoes in town, and he, his wife Carol Ann, and his son Alan live in Parrish Mansion, which has been in the family ever since Angus Parrish many, many, many years ago. Now, our main character is young Alan, and Alan is constantly pushed around by Billy Jessup. And one day, Billy and some of the other local kids chase Alan on bikes. So Alan rides as fast as he can to his dad's shoe factory. When he arrives, goes inside, and he's trying to seek some refuge from his father in the family business. While he's there, he sees Carl, and Carl's one of his dad's employees, as well as kind of a friend to Alan's. And Carl shows him a shoe prototype that he's made all by himself. When his father shows up, Alan puts the shoe down, and it progresses down a conveyor belt towards a processing machine. Sam tries to give Alan some advice. He tells Alan that he needs to stand up for himself. Otherwise, Billy will just push him around for the rest of his life. So Sam is unaware, though, that there are more kids down there with Billy. It's not just a one-on-one situation. So Alan goes down there to stand up to Billy and the others, but he ends up getting jumped, beaten up in the process. The boys steal Alan's bike, and they take off. Alan then follows the sounds of tribal drum beats that he hears to a construction site, and he finds the chest that was buried 100 years ago with a board game inside of it called Jumanji. Alan brings the game home, and that evening, Sam tells Alan that it's time for him to go to the Cliffside School for Boys, become a man, stay in the parish hall, just like he did all those years ago. Alan feels that his father's trying to get rid of him, that his dad doesn't love him. And an argument ends up ensuing between Alan and his father. Alan decides he's going to run away from home, but his friend Sarah Whittle shows up with his bike because Sarah is kind of sort of dating Billy. Alan invites her inside to play Jumanji with him, and the two kids begin the fantastic and horrific adventure game. Sarah rolls first, and the game piece moves all by itself. A message appears in a dome on the board, and Sarah begins hearing an eerie sound. Alan then inadvertently rolls after being startled by the chiming of a clock, and he ends up getting sucked into the game until someone rolls a 5 or an 8. A swarm of bats appear as a result of Sarah's roll, and they proceed to chase her out of the mansion. We then flash forward again, and it's 26 years later. Peter and Judy Shepherd move into the parish mansion with their Aunt Nora. And Nora has become the legal guardians of Peter and Judy ever since their parents died in an accident on a ski trip to Canada the winter prior. Peter and Judy discover the Jumanji game in the attic, and they decide to begin playing. Their roll summons giant mosquitoes and swarms of monkeys. Peter ends up rolling doubles, so he gets another turn. He then rolls a 5, which unleashes a lion as well as a grown-up Alan Parrish. Alan is unaware of what year it is, and as he roams out to the streets, he ends up bumping into Carl, and Carl is now a police officer because he had gotten fired from the shoe factory over the shoe incident. He took the rap for Alan for having destroyed the machine. Alan searches for his parents, and he goes to the shoe factory, figuring he'll find his father there. His father was always working. And Peter and Judy are in pursuit of Alan. When they reach the factory, a homeless man tells Alan that his father, Sam, abandoned the business in order to search for Alan, all the way up until his death in 1991. Along the way, the factory ended up closing its doors, and Brantford went into an economic decline as a result because the factory generated a lot of jobs for the townspeople. So without the factory open, a lot of people lost jobs. Alan, Peter, and Judy then realize that they need the 4th player to finish the game because they all take their turns and the pieces won't move because it's not their turn. So they have to go and find Sarah. Sarah has been tormented for 26 years, both by the Jumanji game and by Alan's disappearance. It takes some persistence, but they eventually get Sarah to agree to participate in the game to help finish the game. Sarah's roll releases some carnivorous vines, and Alan's roll releases a big game hunter named Van Pelt. The next roll releases a herd of various animals, which causes a stampede. And a pelican even flies in and grabs the game. Peter is able to retrieve it, but Alan ends up getting arrested by Carl. The stampede wreaks havoc and destruction in the town, and Van Pelt steals the game. Peter, Judy, and Sarah are able to track Van Pelt to a department store, and they set traps in order to get the game back. Alan reveals himself to Carl and is set free. Alan, Sarah, Peter, and Judy then all return to Paris Mansion, but it's now being overrun with jungle wildlife. They end up releasing one calamity after another until Van Pelt shows up at the mansion. Alan drops the dice and wins the game, and this causes everything that had happened to be undone. Alan and Sarah return to 1969. Alan apologizes to his father, who tells him that he doesn't have to attend boarding school. Alan also tells his father that he was the one responsible for the shoe that damaged the machine at the factory, which allows Carl to keep his job. Alan and Sarah realize that they have memories of the game, so they throw the game Jumanji into a river and share a kiss before they forget what it was like all those years ago. We flash forward to 1995, modern day time, and it's kind of like an alternate universe now because things have happened differently since they returned to 1969. Alan and Sarah are married and expecting their first child. Alan's parents still alive. Alan has taken over the family shoe factory, and they are having a Christmas party when Alan and Sarah meet Judy, Peter, and their parents. Alan offers Jim, the father of Peter and Judy, a job, and Jim tells Alan that, yeah, I can start it right after this ski trip that me and my wife are going to take up to Canada. And Alan persuades them not to take the ski trip, to start right away instead, which then prevents their deaths. So Peter and Judy don't lose their parents now. And our film comes to its conclusion with two young girls walking on a beach. They hear the tribal drum beats, and we see the Jumanji board game half buried in the sand. This is a really, really fun adventure movie. Like, I don't know why it took so many years for there to be a sequel to this film. I honestly feel like there should have been one a lot sooner because obviously it's left open with a cliffhanger. You know, two young girls see the board game buried in the sand. But I don't know why nothing was acted on until, 22 years later. Seems a little crazy to me when you think about it. Robin Williams, you know, Robin Williams is very sorely missed by those of us that grew up with his movies. This film is no exception. It's damn funny. Kirsten Dunst in one of her earlier film roles. David Alan Grier, who had just come off of the run with In Living Color, so he was still a big ticket at that time. So many great actors in this film. When it comes to the original Jumanji, I'm torn because I'm going to go ahead, and this may be controversial, but I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Only because I feel like that there are certain things that come in the sequels that are better than the original. One of the few times where I feel like the sequels improve on the original, and that's nothing to take anything away from the original Jumanji. It's definitely a classic film, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go seek out a copy and watch this film. But it's one of the few trilogies that I can think of, at least in my humble opinion, where the original entry is the weakest entry. but that's not to say that it's a bad film because I do thoroughly enjoy it. But 3.5 out of 5 stars for me on the original. Let's make sure we get out there on the social media. Try to get those hashtags trending. Hashtag Casa D18 Studios, hashtag Renegades Reviews, hashtag Renegade Returns, and of course the ever popular hashtag Shenanigans. We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatBoyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. Don't forget to get out there. Do what that commercial just told you. Go to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network. Get all your official merchandise for the Jeff Meacham Network logo t-shirts, and 3 designs to choose from. Meachamania, Talk Wrestling. Get you your official shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood. Score you a t-shirt of me, the Renegade JJ Williams, Dad's Not Always on Wrestling, Statboy Sports Bar, and so many more. Tomorrow, right back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, when I bring you yet another installment of Renegades Reviews. Make sure you tune in as we tackle the first sequel to Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, starring Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillian, Nick Jonas, Alex Wolff, Sir Darius Blaine, Madison Eisman, Morgan Turner, Mason Guccione, Colin Hanks, and Bobby Cannavale. You're not going to want to miss out tomorrow, right here, exclusively on the Casa D18 Studios channel, when I bring you the next installment of the Jumanji saga. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of my fans and my loyal viewers. Those of you that have been watching the live stream, commenting over here on the side, thank you very much. To all you that watch on demand after it's broadcast, make sure you leave me your comments in the comment box below. Let me know what you think. As I said, I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you guys next time. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade JJ Williams, and today's episode is also being featured. Thank you very much to the Jeff Meacham Network for featuring this episode in the non-Dads on Wrestling weeks. And today I'm going to be discussing from 2017, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, starring Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillian, Nick Jonas, Alex Wolff, Sir Darius Blaine, Madison Eisman, Morgan Turner, Mason Guccione, Colin Hanks, and Bobby Cannavale. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here once again for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. Thank you once again to the Jeff Meacham Network for allowing me to broadcast this episode, as I do an episode every other Friday on the Non-Dads on Wrestling weeks. Today I'm going to be discussing the second installment in the Jumanji trilogy and the first installment with our new cast. If you tuned in yesterday, then you heard me say that the Jumanji trilogy is kind of different in the fact that none of the characters from the original movie, with the exception of one, appear in the second movie, and that one that appears has been completely recast. So there's very little that ties the two together, but they do tie together. Let's get down to it, shall we? And our film opens basically right where the last one ended. The Jumanji board game is half buried in the sand on the beach, and it's 1996. A man is jogging on the beach, and he finds the game. He brings it home and gives it to his son, Alex Vreek. And Alex is your typical 90s teenager. He's not interested in board games. He's into video games. Alex puts it aside, and when he returns to his room later that evening, the board game has turned into a video game console. Being a gamer, he plugs it in, selects his character, and he ends up getting sucked inside the video game. His disappearance causes his father to become despondent, and his home to become known as the Freak House. Falls into despair. The house is in shambles. We then jump ahead 21 years, and we meet our four main characters. Awkward and nerdy Spencer, athlete Fridge, Bethany, kind of a snobby, shallow girl, and Martha, who's a bit of a rebellious one. All of whom get sentenced to detention for various things over the course of a day. Bethany gets sent there for talking on her phone during a quiz, Martha for refusing to participate in physical education and insulting the PE teacher, and Spencer and Fridge because Spencer wrote Fridge's homework assignment. The principal orders the quartet to clean the school basement. And while they're cleaning, Fridge discovers an old video game system with the game Jumanji in it. Spencer sets it up, and the foursome decides to play because it's better than cleaning the basement. Once they select their characters, they are sucked into the video game, much like Alex was. Spencer becomes Dr. Smolder Bravestone. Fridge becomes Franklin Moose Finbar. Bethany becomes Professor Shelley Oberon, short for Sheldon. And Martha becomes Ruby Roundhouse. And as the team begins to come to grips with the situation, they discover 3 lines on their arm, which kind of appear to be tattoos. Spencer deduces that it's their life count. If they lose their 3 lives, game over. Not just in the game, but they could very much die in real life as well. The group ends up encountering Nigel, and Nigel is an NPC, or a non-playable character. And Nigel provides the group with their mission, as well as character backstories. They learn that in order to defeat the game, they must break a curse on Jumanji that was brought forth by Van Pelt. And Van Pelt stole a jewel known as the Jaguar's Eye from its shrine, and therefore gained control of all the jungle animals. Nigel gives Spencer the jewel, having stolen it himself from Van Pelt, and he instructs the group to return the gem to the statue and call out Jumanji in order to break the curse. Now let me pause right here for a second, because Van Pelt is the only character that carried over from the original film. In the original film, he was played by Jonathan Hyde. In this film, he's played by Bobby Cannavale. completely different looks. In fact, they reimagined the character completely for this film. But it's the only carryover character from the original film. Now then, the quartet begins to cope with the weaknesses of their characters, Van Pelt's men, and the animosity between Spencer and Fridge. During one of their missions, they encounter Jefferson Seaplane McDonough, who takes them to a home in the jungle which was constructed by Alan Parrish, Robin Williams' character in the original film. While they're there, they learn that McDonough is really Alex Vreek. And Alex believes that he's been in the game for only a few months. So when he learns that he's been in there for 20 years, he's shocked beyond belief. The foursome right then and there vows to help Alex return home. The group work together in order to overcome their obstacles en route to the shrine. And upon their arrival at the shrine, Van Pelt corners them. They formulate a plan, and they have Fridge, Bethany, and Alex distract Van Pelt, while Spencer and Martha return the jewel to the statue. Once they do and are successful, they call out Jumanji, destroy Van Pelt, and after a congratulatory handshake from Nigel, they return to the real world. Spencer, Fridge, Bethany, and Martha return to the school basement, and they discover that Alex isn't with them. While walking home, they discover that the Freak House is no longer in ruins. It's been kept up, restored, it looks beautiful, and it's decorated for Christmas. A car pulls up, and Alex gets out of the driver's seat. He tells his family, to go on inside the house. I'll be right there. And he goes to talk to the four kids. He tells them that the game sent him all the way back to 1996, which is where he entered the game. Which allowed him to live his life, get married, and have kids. And he even named his daughter Bethany as a tribute to the girl who saved his life in the game. Because remember, I mentioned the 3 strips on their arms for their power lives. Alex lost all of his. And Bethany gave him CPR to revive him, which took away one of her lives in order to restore his. So she still had 1 life left after doing so, and Alex was able to survive and return home. So, as I said, as a tribute, he named his daughter Bethany. As a result of their adventure in Jumanji, the quartet become really good friends. Bethany becomes a much better person. Spencer and Fridge make amends, and Spencer even begins to date Martha. And when the group begins to hear the drums of Jumanji, Fridge destroys the system with a bowling ball in order to prevent anyone from playing the game ever again. Yesterday when I discussed the original, I mentioned that there were things that I enjoyed better in this one. And while I do find the fact that Bethany pre the game was really undesirable, like I just couldn't stand her, I still felt that she was less whiny than Peter and Judy. And granted, There's an age difference between the characters. Bethany is a junior or maybe a senior in high school. Peter and Judy are upper elementary, junior high at best. So there's definitely an age gap there. But I just felt that the most annoying character in the sequel was still less annoying than Peter and Judy, if that makes sense. Obviously, this one has Dwayne Johnson, known to WWE fans as The Rock. I'm a huge Rock fan. I always have been. So that makes this one a little bit more desirable. And much like Alex, I grew up in the 90s. You know, I was Alex's age in the 90s. I wasn't a board game guy back then. I was a video game guy. So the whole board game in the 90s, I feel like the video game upgrade was just what it needed to make it a little bit more relatable and a little bit more desirable. The cast here all around is phenomenal. Again, Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillan. All of them do a tremendous job with their characters. Whereas in the original, I really only enjoyed Robin Williams, Bonnie Hunt, and a little bit of Jonathan Hyde. Jonathan Hyde had a dual role in the original, playing Sam Parrish, Ellen's father, and Van Pelt. I think that's just the reason why I gravitate towards this a little bit better, a little bit more. Although I do feel like they should have capitalized on Jumanji while it was hot in the 90s and done a sequel then. I really enjoy the nod to Alan Parrish that they made in this one. And I feel like it was a classy way to remember Robin Williams' character from the original. When it comes to my star rating for this one, 4.5 out of 5. I really like this one that much more than the original. I might be crazy. Let me know what you guys think. Those of you that are out there watching the premiere, leave your comments over here. Those of you that are watching me on demand, leave your comments down here. I'm very curious to see what you guys think. Am I out of my mind in that I love this one that much more than the original? Tell me. Let's get out there on social media, get those hashtags trending. Hashtag Casa D18 Studios, hashtag Renegades Reviews, hashtag Renegade Returns, and of course the ever popular hashtag Shenanigans. We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
Merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatBoyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. Don't forget to get out there. Do what that commercial just told you. Go to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network. Score you all your official merchandise of the Jeff Meacham Network. We got 3 designs for the Jeff Meacham Network logo. Meachamania, Talk Wrestling. Get you your official t-shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Renegade JJ Williams, Dad's Not Always on Wrestling, Stat Boy Sports Bar, and so much more. Tomorrow, back here exclusively on the Casa D18 Studios channel, when I bring you yet another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. Make sure you tune in as I close out the Jumanji trilogy with 2019's Jumanji: The Next Level, starring Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillan, Nick Jonas, Alex Wolff, Sir Darius Blaine, Madison Eisman, Morgan Turner, and Colin Hanks, all returning and reprising their roles. And we introduce Danny Glover and Danny DeVito to the story that is Jumanji. Thank you guys for joining me, watching along. Once again, those of you that have been watching the premiere, make sure you leave your comments over here. Those of you that watch on demand, leave your comments below. I will get back to you. I appreciate each and every one of my loyal viewers and my fans. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here as always on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade JJ Williams, and today I'm going to be closing out the Jumanji trilogy with 2019's Jumanji: The Next Level, starring Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillan, Nick Jonas, Alex Wolff, Sir Darius Blaine, Madison Eisman, Morgan Turner, and Colin Hanks, all returning to their roles. And we introduce Danny Glover and Danny DeVito to the fold. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here for another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. Here today to close out the Jumanji saga with the majority of the cast back from the second film. A couple new additions, and let's get down to it, shall we? Our film takes place 2 years after the events of the last film, and Spencer, Fridge, Bethany, and Martha have all gone their separate ways to different colleges, but they have decided to have a reunion around Christmas time. Spencer and Martha have taken a little bit of a break from each other, and Spencer is a little bit down on himself. Spencer feels like he isn't the same man that he was when he came out of the last Jumanji adventure. He decides to get the video game console out and plug it in, and even though it's broken, it works just enough that it sucks him back into the game. And he attempts to get some of that bravery and courage back because he thinks that entering the game, he'll automatically return to Dr. Bravestone, who he played as the last time. When Spencer doesn't show up for the reunion, Fridge, Bethany, and Martha all get worried. They go to Spencer's home and they're greeted by Eddie, Spencer's grandfather, as well as Eddie's former business partner, Milo. They discover that Spencer has re-entered Jumanji, and they begrudgingly decide to go in and retrieve him. Once they're back inside the game, Martha discovers that she is once again Ruby Roundhouse. Fridge enters the game as Professor Sheldon Shelley Oberon, which was Bethany's previous character. And Martha and Fridge discover that Bethany didn't enter the game with them at all. Dr. Smolder Bravestone and Franklin Mouse Finbar are now being occupied by Eddie and Milo, respectively. Martha and Fridge try to explain to Eddie and Milo the rules of the game and what is going on when NPC, non-playable character, Nigel shows up. And Nigel explains that Jumanji is suffering from a massive drought. And in order to defeat the game, the group must end the drought by recovering a necklace known as the Falcon's Heart, which was stolen by Jurgen the Brutal. Meanwhile, Bethany, still out in the real world, seeks out Alex Vreek, who was in the game the last time, and tries to get him for some assistance. She doesn't know where else to turn to. He's the only person that she can think of to go to for help. Nigel transports the group to a Jumanji desert, and he drops them off in order to pursue Jurgen. And while on their first quest in the game, they encounter a skilled thief known as Ming Fleetfoot, which is a brand new character to the game, which is being occupied by Spencer. Spencer apologizes to Fridge and Martha for the predicament that he's put them in, and he joins the team in order to help get everyone back home. As they attempt to escape the desert, they face new challenges as they attempt to gather an in-game item known as the Jumanji Berry. When they find the Jumanji Berry, they also discover a pool of glowing green water, which allows Fridge and Martha, when they touch it, to swap characters. So Fridge becomes Ruby Roundhouse, and Martha becomes Professor Shelley Oberon. They touch the water again and switch back, but they make a note of this water. Eddie and Milo continue their bickering, and it's revealed that their friendship ended when Milo sold the diner that they co-owned together behind Eddie's back and forced Eddie into an early retirement that he wasn't ready to take. The group travels to a forest just beyond the desert, and as the group attempts to cross a series of rope bridges, they are attacked by a group of mandrills. Once they succeed in crossing the bridges, they encounter Jefferson Seaplane McDonough and a new character, Cyclone, a horse, which are being controlled by Alex and Bethany, respectively. As they recuperate from the mandrill attack, Eddie discovers that Milo is terminally ill, and Milo came to see Eddie at the house in order to try to make peace, make amends before he dies. The two reconcile, and they move forward in their friendship, and the group works together to make it to Mount Zatmire, where they discover a river with the same green glowing water that allowed Fridge and Martha to trade characters earlier. They decide that Eddie and Milo, specifically, as Dr. Bravestone and Finbar, are horrible in their characters. So they decide to have Spencer, Fridge, Bethany, Eddie, and Milo all enter the water in an attempt to swap characters. They do, and Spencer, Fridge, and Bethany emerge as their characters from the previous adventure. Dr. Smolder Bravestone, Franklin Mouse Finbar, and Professor Shelley Oberon, respectively, while Eddie and Milo emerge as Mean Fleetfoot and Cyclone. Shortly after switching characters, Jurgen's men capture Eddie and Milo. Spencer, Martha, Fridge, Bethany, and Alex all split up and infiltrate Jurgen's fortress in order to rescue Eddie and Milo and obtain the Falcon Heart. While they're climbing on an ice wall to get up to the fortress, Martha asks Spencer why he abandoned his old life, as well as her. And Spencer admits that looking at Martha's college successes on social media made him kind of insecure. Martha consoles him and reminds him that she and his other friends are there for him when you're feeling scared and insecure. When the next battle commences, Spencer pursues Jurgen while the rest of the team fight Jurgen's henchmen. Spencer discovers that Jurgen is vulnerable to the Jumanji berry, and this incapacitates him just long enough for Spencer to steal the Falcon Heart and defeat Jurgen officially. He gives Eddie the necklace, and Eddie and Milo fly up into the air, let the sun shine upon the necklace, restoring the magic and defeating the game. They return the Falcon Heart to Nigel for safekeeping, and the group is shocked when Milo decides that he wants to stay in the game and protect the land of Jumanji as Cyclone the flying horse. They get their customary congratulatory handshake from Nigel, which sends them back to the real world. Once they return, Spencer and Martha seemingly make up and resume their relationship, and Spencer teaches his grandfather about video games. Spencer, Fridge, Martha, and Bethany have their reunion at Nora's Diner, formerly known as Milo and Eddie's, the business that the two friends owned before their falling out. And having gotten over his resentment, Eddie actually enters the diner for the first time since it was sold. The new owner of the diner is Nora Shepherd, Peter and Judy's aunt from the first Jumanji. Nora tells Eddie that she's having an issue with management, and Eddie convinces her to hire him as the new diner manager. Our film comes to its conclusion, and during a mid-credits scene, the heater mechanic, who Spencer's mom had hired at the beginning of the film, finally shows up. He notices the video game system, and he reaches for it. We then cut back to the diner and witness a flock of ostriches rush past Nora's diner as Spencer and company witness the entire incident. This one was another really fun one. I liked the fact that the majority of the cast returned, for one. Granted, it was only done 2 years after the previous installment, which made it a lot easier. But still, the cast returned. It had the same vibe and energy as the second installment of the series. The additions of Danny Glover and Danny DeVito were just awesome. The inclusion of Nora from the original film, kind of tying those ends together, was really, really cool. All in all, I just feel that the third one was right up there on par with the second installment as being still better than the original. And again, it's really rare that, in my opinion, you find a series where the first installment is the weakest. But I have to say that that's what we have in this situation. And again, I'm not calling the 1995 Jumanji a bad movie. because it's a great movie. I just feel that Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle and Jumanji The Next Level took the game and the mystique of Jumanji and took it, pun intended, to the next level. And it just became so much more vibrant and fun to see what Alan went through when he was stuck inside the game, because these characters were inside the game as well. I think maybe that was the thing that was missing from the first one is we know Alan got sucked in the game, but aside from the fact that he knew Van Pelt when Van Pelt emerged, we don't know a whole lot of what happened to him while he was in the game. These two games, we see what happens to them when they get sucked inside the game. And I feel that was the missing link from the original. What do you guys think? Let me know. Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're watching the premiere over here, if you're watching on demand, leave them down here. When it comes to my rating of Jumanji The Next Level, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I don't feel it's as good as Welcome to the Jungle, but I still feel that it's better than the original. Just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Again, if you're watching the premiere, tell me over here. If you're watching on demand, tell me down here. Let's get out there on the social media, get those hashtags trending. Hashtag Casa D18 Studios, hashtag Renegades Reviews, hashtag Renegade Returns, and of course the ever popular hashtag Shenanigans. We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
Merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatBoyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. Don't forget to do what that commercial just told you. Get out there, go to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network. Get you all your official merchandise of the Jeff Meacham Network, your Jeff Meacham Network logo shirts, Meachamania, Talk Wrestling. Get you your t-shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood. Get you your Renegade JJ Williams shirt, Statboy Sports Bar, Dad's Not Always on Wrestling, and so much more. Tomorrow, back here on the Casa D18 Studios channel, when I bring you yet another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews. Make sure you tune in as we begin our next trilogy, the Oceans Trilogy, with Oceans 11, starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Andy Garcia, Julia Roberts, and so many others. You're not going to want to miss that trilogy as we kick that off tomorrow, Oceans 11 and the Danny Ocean Oceans Trilogy. Thank you all for tuning in. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you that have watched the premiere and that tune in on demand every day to my episodes. Thank you all for your dedication and your support. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys next time.